we have all this really cool technology. The current gen, I think, has been more powerful than ever. Ray tracing, DLSS, we're getting crazy frame rates. Most games can achieve some frame rates of like 120 frames per second and look absolutely insane, like photorealistic and all that kind of stuff. But why is it that the games themselves just can't seem to match up with the graphical quality that we're getting now? The one game that I want to bring up, right? The poster child for this is Forspoken.
I'd buy that for $1.
Thank you for that to Minority Games. Appreciate that. The poster child for this is, like I said, it is Forspoken. This game, the trailer came out, it looked beautiful, everybody was really excited to play it, and then the game comes out and it completely craps the bed. So, Dido, this was your topic. What do you want to speak on this?
Well, some of you guys may know me out there as being the one that collects a heck of a lot of games, and some of the games that I collect are ones that feel and play like things that of the past, nostalgic games, and some of the ones that come out that are brand spanking new to me, like the Souls type game. You never really had anything like the Souls games till 3D started to hit, right? But now, actually, not really till 3D started to hit, not until Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, you started having stuff like the Souls games. But it feels like nowadays games are coming out, and it's just the same thing, different coat of paint. And like, I guess we could complain about like first person shooters because those are like the biggest hits now. And how much can you change up a first person shooter? They try, like they came out with and Amarok probably played a whole bunch of Overwatch. Overwatch is a very fun, competitive first person shooter game, very fast, very twitchy. It's probably something that I would have played back in the 90s because it wouldn't have made me sick. But then they started to come out with a lot of, what was that other one? Was it like Battleborn or something like that?
Valorant. Yeah.
Valor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but like it was like they're just trying to cash in on a whole bunch of stuff. Like even back in the day, they don't do it too much now. The fighting games, everybody's trying to come out with a fighting game. It's Street Fighter 2. But it's like the innovation for a lot of games is very slow. The graphics look great. Like that game, Crimson Desert, I came in when we were watching that. It's probably the best looking game I've seen. I can't think of anything that looks better. Like the particle effects, just how many people on screen. Like just it looked great. But I'm sitting there watching it and I'm like, okay, that looks like a Souls game, but it's probably not as hard. They're doing shit that Zelda, they're doing literally in Tears of the Kingdom, where you're floating islands and he's jumping off the fucking islands and skydiving. Then you see him going through what looked like a chasm like in Zelda. I'm like, Zelda's only been out for a few months and you're already making a game that, granted, looks a million times better than Tears of the Kingdom, but it's playing like Tears of the Kingdom. And it's just like, you guys are trying to innovate, but you're not really doing a good job innovating. And we sucker gamers keep just buying the same shit over and over and over again.
Let me ask you a question. When you talk about innovation, what exactly do you mean by that? When you're talking about innovation,
like something that's different that gives you, like, for example, right? And I'm gonna go back to the series that I like, the Yakuza series. Now, long time ago, they came up with RPGs. Every single RPG, from my understanding, that was on NES, Master System, Genesis, Super Nintendo, were all turn-based, because that was the thing. It was turn-based. At the time, up until I started playing Mario RPG, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy 4. Yeah, like the number is confusing. It's actually 6 in Japan. Forgot what they called it over here. I started playing those, and I was like, I'll give turn-based a chance, because I was a little bit older, reading in the stories. And Final Fantasy 7 came out and really started to, for me, pull me into the RPG, right? But there's not really any innovation in any RPG. The stories are different, the graphics are different, same gameplay, right? Then you start to get more deeper into 3D stuff. And then you had Shenmue come out, which wasn't really an RPG in the same manner, but it was something that was story driven, and you had real time fighting in it. But you didn't really, you could make yourself better, but it wasn't the same thing like leveling up. But then like they took, to me, which felt like an innovation. I could be wrong in others' opinion, but my opinion, like Yakuza. Yakuza series took what was like the best of what was Shenmue, the best of RPGs, and made it its own stuff. They innovated on it because though you ran around the city and you got into fights randomly, like in RPGs, you actually fought and you did gain experience points and you learned new moves and you learned new techniques and you did all this other stuff, but it wasn't turn-based until, like a Dragon or Yakuza 7 came out, which they decided to make it turn-based for whatever reason. But like, it's like that because until then, I don't recall. Now there was probably other action RPGs out there that you can include into the innovation. Like, I don't know what came first, that or Kingdom Hearts, but Kingdom Hearts to me felt like an innovation of an RPG. Because
it was. I think it was the first real action RPG.
Yeah, because you're not standing around waiting for somebody to hit you.
Yeah.
But like nowadays, if it ain't broke, they're not fixing it. I don't know how many Call of Duty games are out there. I don't know how many. What's the other one?
You mean like NBA 2K?
Well, it's kind of hard to innovate on the sports games. Leave sports games out of this.
Okay.
Sports games are going to be
too?
sports games.
Racing
games can only just get more realistic.
Okay.
Unless you want them to be arcadey, which I miss the arcade racing games.
I miss the arcades too.
Because to me, arcade racing games were the most fun, but it's kind of hard to actually innovate in that aspect. And I'm not necessarily asking for the industry to innovate to the point where, like, this is brand spanking new, but, something has to come up, something has to give eventually. I mean, granted, we're going to play games that we feel are fun. We were brought in by the graphics, and then we're going to see if it's something that, toots your fancy or whatever.
So, Amrock, I'm going to ask you, do you have anything to say / comment about what Dado's bringing up here?
No, he nailed what's happening. Oh, my God, right now. I got... Hold on, give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Okay, then. There goes that. GQ, what do you think?
Well, to Dido's point, the innovation has pretty much fallen off, and I think a part of that is a product of what normally happens once these games get bigger, better, badder. They get more expensive to make, and now we're falling into the same thing that the movies industry has had trouble with for a while. Companies want sequels. Companies want proven properties. Companies want, more of the same because that seems to be what's making the money. We had talked about it a little bit before the show. Sports games, like you said, don't really count because you can't really change them because sports are sports. But Call of Duty, if fans suddenly stop buying Call of Duty would be forced to innovate, but that's not going to happen. People always buy Call of Duty when when the next one drops. Same thing with even though Fortnite is free to play, Fortnite is one of the most popular games in the world and most profitable games in the world because people like what they're getting. So only thing left for them to do with that game is just add more guest characters. That's kind of what they've been doing for the past couple of years. Going back to, like, he had brought up the Xbox 360 generation. There was a game called Stranglehold that starred Chow Yun-Fat. Great action game, super innovative, stepped way outside the box as far as like how it was developed, the action in the game. I would love to see more stuff like that, but we're at the point now where, like, there was a game all the way back when the PlayStation 2 first dropped called The Bouncer. That was supposed to be the tech demo of the trailer that they did because the actual game was nowhere near.
No.
But it's like we can do all of that stuff now, and the company is just like, it's like they forgot about it. There's a lot of opportunity there that just seems to just not being taken advantage of because we're stuck in that rut of these games cost millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to make now versus back then where you didn't have to worry about biggest and baddest graphics. The gameplay is what was going to sell the game.
Would you include a game like Sifu in that innovation category? Because I think when you think of Stranglehold, when you think of that that Jet Li game that was on PlayStation 2, Sifu was like a spiritual successor of that.
That
right?
Jet Li game suffered from bad control.
Oh, it did. No, it did.
Yeah,
I thought it was cool with the analog stick and being able to attack in any direction you want. I thought that was really cool, but it was just a bad game.
That and Death by Degrees both had that same messed up control sequence, and it was just like, these games would have been fine if you would have just gave us regular control or something. Again, I get it. They were trying to try something new. Nothing is as bad as that one game was Drake and the 99 Dragons as far as control. But,
Wow.
But even like, for example, like that Jet Li game, it was the birth of what they perfected in the Arkham series, because the Arkham combat is
flawless.
Like that. It's flawless.
Yes, it's flawless.
So it's. I would love to see, and again, innovation is tough when you got millions upon millions of dollars on the line, and you can't really step too far outside the box, because if you do, it fails, and you probably lose your job or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know.
You bring up a good point, right?
Yeah.
So with what you just said, and Amarak, you just came back, so I'm gonna ask you this: do you feel like, to Dido's point, whose fault is this? Is this, with games that aren't giving innovation? Is this pressure from shareholders and the not giving the devs enough time, money to innovate, or is this just laziness on part of game devs with they're not really pushing the envelope? They're kind of playing it safe and going with what works.
Okay, so there is a lot of playing it safe going on, but we've honestly just reached a point where being the best and having the most best titles has become more important than making video games. The stuff that has caught my attention, honestly, in like the past years, is shit no one's ever heard of, because they're games. That feel like games and stuff still. It doesn't have to have like the best graphics and things like that. And people who are concentrating on that don't get acknowledged. So it just kind of seems like the only thing we're getting over and over again is the same shit, and nobody's getting like innovative with it.
Okay.
Like we've lost the plot of what a video game is, and that's bad. But we've gotten to the point where we have the stuff to remember, because this year was great. There were great games that happened, but the best ones were the ones that were not hyper realistic.
That's true. Think of like Hyper Light Drifter and things like that, where they're almost like pseudo 8-bit games, but they're really, really innovative. You think of the roguelikes.
Did you play Hi-Fi Rush?
No, I haven't played it.
The rhythm game, it's quite possibly my game of the year.
Okay. And maybe you're right. Maybe there's and I think Takeem just put it in the chat, it's AAA Studio BS, where they feel compelled that they have to make everything on the bleeding edge of graphical quality, and then the rest of the game kind of suffers because of that. I don't know. I could be right about it. Okay. All right, guys. We're about out of time. I'm sorry. Simon Says. What were you gonna say?
No, I agree with Amarak to the split where it's like they want to spend more money on the actual graphics than actually put more effort into the actual story of the game. So take, for instance, like Call of Duty and everything. They, I take that back. CD Projekt Red, they told us the game will be done when it's ready. Cyberpunk, yeah. So they kept pressuring I would say this is the fans' fault, to be honest with you. I couldn't really say if it's the fault of the actual suits or the devs, but the devs said it'll be out when it's ready, but then everyone kept saying, "Oh, when it's coming out? When is it coming out?" They said, "Okay, we'll put it out. It's not ready, but we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and send it out."
That was kind of their fault. They never should have caved to fan pressure.
That's what happened.
They never should have done that.
They shouldn't have. They caved, and that's what they got, and the fans are pissed. But hey, that's your fault, not the devs. You guys asked for the game, and you wanted the game to come out.
Well,
you've been bitching about it for about almost 4 or 5 years, and then they showed you a trailer of the game. The game looks great, but again, they said it wasn't ready. But you guys the fans wanted it. Oh yeah, we want the game now. Okay. We'll give it to you.
Well, so, I disagree because at the end of the day, the devs have the ultimate control. They just caved. So that's on